the keyboard to the boardroom. This is the business of esports. Do you want to own your esports fandom and support your favorite content creators and gamers? Arterra Labs is a world-renowned NFT platform with a focus on esports and gaming markets. Their climate-neutral platform enables users to find, mint, trade, and purchase items from some of the top influencers and esports organizations. It's easy to use and even easier to sign up for. Don't miss out on the modern-day NFT gold rush. Just go to arterra.co to learn more. That's ARTERRA.co. From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports podcast. I am Paul Dawalibi. I'm joined today by my friend and co-host, the Honorable Judge Jimmy Barada. For those of you who are new, welcome to the official podcast of esports. What we do here is we cover the most pressing gaming and esports topics and news of the week, but we look at all of it through a business and C-suite lens. We dissect, we analyze the business implications of everything happening in this industry. For our regular listeners, thank you guys for tuning in every week. Thank you for all the love, the 5-star ratings and reviews. If you haven't already, go leave a review on the podcast or send it to someone, send it to a friend or a colleague. If you enjoy the business of esports, all that love, all that sharing is appreciated. Jimmy, how you doing this week?
Hey, Paul, how's it going, everybody? Thanks for tuning in and listening. Having a great week, but I got to say, and for our regular listeners, they know we record on Wednesdays. Wednesday also the day where we have our live news show, which you can also listen, throughout the week. But we do encourage live listening and participation. But man, it's been a long week and already a long start to the day. So I'm just waiting to clock out.
Well, you are officially COVID-free, my friend, right? That's good news.
Officially COVID-free.
You're a COVID survivor.
It was a long stint.
It was touch and go there for a moment. My mom really worried.
More than my mom, probably.
But you're back at 100%, which is noticeable. When you slow down, everyone, nothing, far less gets done. So I'm happy you're okay. I'm still disappointed you didn't play games and use that as an excuse while you were sick.
At the level that we play, I think you need to be at 100% to really give it your all in some of the games. My friend group is so competitive, right? Every match, whoever is the leader, it's just nonstop toxic chat until the next round. So it was a lot easier to just lay in bed and watch things than it was to actively engage and react, at least because I play a lot of FPS, I guess.
I got the question I got a lot this week was how I'm liking Lost Ark. And I'm sad to say, I thought this is great. I'm still in Florida. I'm going to have lots of time to play games. The reality is I haven't had any time to play anything. I did install Lost Ark and I did play it for like 20 minutes. So I got 20 minutes of Lost Ark in.
That's the tutorial right there, huh?
Exactly. Literally just what they call the prologue. And I don't know. I'm not sure. It's too soon, right? Like, obviously I consider myself a connoisseur of MMOs. I think my opinion of MMOs usually is quite right. Obviously, until you've played an MMO like Lost Ark through to endgame, it's hard to make a really smart decision about it. I will say it feels... And I don't know if it's the isometric view. I don't know if that's part of the issue. It didn't feel like it was something that had the ability to hook me, and I don't know why yet. I don't know if it's just a function of me being really busy, but I have to give it more of a shot. And I think part of the other issue is I just don't know a lot of people playing it, right? Like, you don't play it. MMOs are really tough, I think, if you're trying to solo your way through everything, and they're not nearly as fun.
I think it's an interesting comparison, especially with New World, where it did hook me at least initially, and then lost me because of the economics and some of the holes that they didn't fully flush out yet. But I think at the end of the day, it really does, like you said, come down to that community and who you can play with, because games are a social function, and something fun I think to digest and discuss on the live show later tonight for sure. Something where I know we've covered and have some daily pieces on our socials that our host Super of some of that content can share if you guys follow us on Instagram, Twitter, etc. But yeah, no, it's going to be fun to see where they go from here, because it has been a strong start. I'm sorry your experience wasn't as great.
No, I think part of the problem too is I mentioned this in our Discord, which everyone should join. If you're listening to this, it's discord.gg/metatv. So super easy to remember and to join. Just put that in your browser bar and you'll be prompted to join the Discord. But I had this conversation with someone in our Discord where it was like, I think part of the problem with MMOs is the wonder is gone, right? Like everyone, especially with Lost Ark, because it's been out in Korea, right? You can go Google every quest. You can go Google literally how to min max every aspect of the game.
That's actually really, I mean, I don't know why I'm surprised, because the prophet just kind of spits these truths, but that's so insightful. That is anything ever going to touch the lore of WoW? Because back then it was a lot harder to have these walkthrough, right? You had to get like that paper walkthrough and guide, and even that came out years after.
Or you just had to figure things out,
or you figured it out, exactly. And now you just Google the easiest way to complete the quest, and there's no challenge. That's a really interesting point.
I was reading one of the comments in another Discord server that I'm in, and someone said in that Discord server that they've literally skipped every bit of dialogue in Lost Ark, right? They're max level, but they skipped it. Like, first of all, these poor game designers, why did they spend all this time putting in dialogue when literally someone skipped through every single cutscene and every single dialogue moment? But it sort of points to this, maybe it's a generational thing where no one wants to be bothered with any kind of story, any kind of journey. Like, it's how do I get to max level and min max literally every stat and every item and everything in the game. I don't know. And I'm like that, but I enjoy getting there also, right? Like, so I don't know if I'm starting to think after New World and now Lost Ark, and I'm not, my mind isn't made up on Lost Ark yet, so I don't want to get hate messages here, but I don't know if MMOs, like, I really don't know how MMOs can be successful anymore. I'm starting to think that maybe it's a structural and generational problem more than a game developer issue. I would love to get the insight and opinion of our guests, though, on this and on many other things, because we do have an amazing guest on today's show, Jimmy. We have none other than Rohan Bose, who is an associate at Teknos Associates. They're a global valuation and advisory services firm. I know they do stuff in gaming. Rohan, welcome to the Business of Esports podcast.
Thank you, Paul and Jimmy. It's good to be here. Appreciate the warm welcome.
Rohan, for our audience that maybe doesn't know about you, doesn't know about Teknos Associates, would love a little bit of like your background, how you got into gaming, why you got into gaming, what you're doing at Teknos, how it intersects with gaming, just a little bit of your story as it pertains to the world of gaming.
Sure. I think, the gaming part started very young. I think first console was an N64 when I was 6-7 years old. And then from there, just kind of grew to love video games and just kind of the social aspect of it. One of my closest friends is my neighbor growing up, and just remember going to each other's houses and hanging out, playing various games together. And then I think that's always been an interest of mine and kind of something I really enjoyed. And I think kind of informed my career decisions a little bit. I went to school at University of Texas at Dallas, majored in economics, minored in finance. Kind of knew I wanted to be in the finance side of things early on, and took a little bit of time to kind of figure out exactly what that looked like. Started at a kind of tiny boutique valuation shop, had a total of 5 employees, and then kind of, was trying to grow both professionally and just from a firm standpoint. And so moved to an accounting firm where specialized in kind of forensic and litigation valuation services, which was an interesting time. Very detail oriented. You see some really interesting stuff in terms of kind of assets that various people own. I think the most interesting one for me was we had to value or rely on an appraiser's value of I think like $3 million worth of diamonds, including one very large one that was like $1.5 million by itself. And it's just fascinating, tracing the money used to purchase those assets and kind of how that gets split between people. So that was an interesting point in my career. But the accounting firm wasn't kind of my cup of tea. Moved to another firm that was more pure valuation. And at that firm, I'm also a very big sports guy. Grew up playing soccer, but any professional sport I could probably tell you at least a little bit about. And this valuation firm specialized in the valuation of professional sports franchises. So, in my career, I've valued NBA, NFL, NHL, MLB teams. And so, it was a very interesting kind of part of my career. And while I was at that firm, kind of got to know esports. I'm based in Dallas, Texas. I went to a Dallas Startup Week event. It was one of the sections was focused on esports and gaming. They had at the time some of the people from Infinite speaking. So got to listen to them and learn from them. And they're very eye-opening. I guess never realized what was in my literal backyard, in terms of the companies that were there and what was going on in kind of the esports scene. And so it was very eye-opening to me, and something that it kind of made me want to focus, with this previous firm. We're already doing traditional sports valuations. There's probably an opportunity to do that in esports and gaming as well. Obviously not quite as developed as an industry yet. And so maybe take some more artistry and guesswork than you would use for kind of the traditional sports. But that's kind of how I ended up at Teknos. They already had a presence in esports and gaming. Have done some work with some of the bigger teams in the country in terms of valuation for equity purposes and things like that, and even kind of consulting services. And so it just kind of worked out to where I was trying to build out an esports vertical at my previous firm. It just kind of wasn't clicking there, and there was an opportunity at Teknos, and I was able to kind of come on and join and kind of try and build that out here at Teknos.
Rohan, I love the story, and I think what you guys do, which is putting valuations on businesses, right? Fundamentally, I think is so fascinating. I want to get to Roblox, but I think before I get there, because Roblox is a big client of yours, and I would argue a darling of the gaming world. I think we've on the podcast have had almost nothing but good things to say about them. But I want to ask maybe the most obvious question first, because if you look at the list of Teknos Associates client, you have worked with esports teams, right?
Right.
And I'd love to start with, like, how do you guys go about valuing an esports team? Because I think esports team valuations are maybe one of the most controversial topics in the entire industry, right? Like, it's the thing where when we bring it up in a live show or on a podcast, you always get back and forth. You always get differing opinions. How do you guys, like, from a professional standpoint, go about putting a valuation on something like an esports team?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? I had a mentor once tell me that valuation is a combination of art and science, and depending on your client, it's more art than science. And I think that's kind of what applies here. It's you know there's obviously kind of your standardized methods of valuation. Be happy to dig into those specifics too. But you kind of have your base level of analysis, looking at financial statements, historical performance, projected future performance. How does this subject company stack up against its competitors, both kind of in market and then maybe in a broader sense, kind of in industry. And so using those kind of metrics, where does it fall in kind of that range of existing companies, and trying to kind of nail down a range or even a specific number from there.
Are esports teams more difficult to value than, say, like a game developer like Roblox? Like, because there's maybe more intangible value, like, right? Evil Genius is one of the clients on your on your list. Part of that value, I would assume, is the brand Evil Geniuses, right? And
Yeah.
is that's part of the art? Like, how do you put a value on something that is fundamentally intangible?
Yeah, no, it's exactly right. That's kind of the art piece of it, right? It's using your experience and knowledge, and kind of tapping into your firm's resources to kind of figure out, if another team is at multiple X, does Evil Geniuses get 20% premium to X, or 10% discount to X, or what makes the most sense here, because of what we know about Evil Geniuses.
So let's take Evil Geniuses out of the equation. I'm just curious, 'cause it's fascinating. What are then some of the parameters or the check marks on your list that you'll go down and say, hey, I have this new company X, team X that I need to evaluate? What are the things? Yeah, you mentioned other teams in the same space, or perhaps at the same level, and borrowing against that. But what are some of those, I suppose, items on your checklist that you have to analyze each one of them towards coming to your conclusion?
Yeah, so I think the first and foremost is just kind of financial health, right? So how are you making money, and how does that kind of cash flow come in? And then what are the expenses associated with that revenue? So yeah, for me, it's for an esports organization, I think the primary drivers is the sponsorships, right? And then based on those sponsorships largely seem to be driven on what titles are you participating in, right? So if you're able to get into some of those bigger, more popular titles, it's a bit easier to attract the bigger sponsors and get that revenue in. And so, yeah, I mean, it at its base level, it's really just how much money are you bringing in, how much are you spending, and how does that kind of line up? Are you profitable, or when do you plan on becoming profitable?
So when we get to the art stage of things, what would be some of the influencing factors that you would say, well, they have this partner or they did this activation? What are some of the more artful terms then that really raise an eyebrow for you guys?
Yeah, so
oh yeah, please.
Sure, your sponsorship roster, right? Like if my mom can identify or recognize your sponsors, then you're probably doing a pretty good job. Same thing from even kind of a player or title perspective, right? I have family members that know very very little about gaming or esports, but if they are able to recognize a player or a title, or kind of point out something to me without me kind of prompting it, then I'd say it's a pretty encouraging sign, and a positive factor for that team. So yeah, I think it's really just kind of the public awareness of a brand and kind of their assets.
Rohan, I just want to talk to, when it, as I have my own thoughts on this, but as someone who spends their time working with valuations and company valuations, what would be the advice you give to startup entrepreneurs? Because there's a lot of them listening who listen to this podcast, right? Who maybe have an idea or a little bit of a business, but really something pretty young, pretty new. how would you advise them in terms of putting a value on that and on their business when it's still very early stage and maybe they don't have customers yet, right? Or maybe they don't even have a finished product yet and they're going and looking to raise money. What advice do you give those people?
Yeah, I think for me, the thing I see the most is, you're allocating a lot of budget to marketing and trying to attract customers. And I think there needs to be maybe a little bit more focus on your product and why is your product good and why does it, what would make me want to buy it? And instead of, trying to generate the awareness, focus on doing what you want to do really well first. And have a plan to kind of generate that revenue sooner rather than later. Because for me, a lot of the startups we've talked to, we've raised X dollars and 20% of that X is going to our marketing budget. And to me, it seems like a lot of these companies seem to focus on the wrong thing very early on. And it's more, how can you generate revenue quickly and become profitable sooner rather than later?
But like when someone walks through my door and pitches me their idea, right? And it's two people and their dog and an idea, right? And they put a $20 million valuation on their business because it's esports or it's metaverse and it's really hot, right? I'm just curious if do you have advice for those people in terms of how they value their business or?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think they're probably looking at kind of market size, right? They saw, esports is X billion dollars and, we can get a small chunk of this. I think my advice would be, let's be realistic here, right? Like you said, it's you, your partner and your dog. Getting that market share is going to be extremely difficult with that limited amount of resources. So let's, focus on doing something really well and maybe set our sights a little bit lower because that high valuation is overly optimistic. So I think for me, it's kind of injecting a bit of reality and just kind of more tempered advice, if you will.
Let's switch to Roblox here for a second, because I think Roblox is an interesting one, right?
Yeah.
And first of all, I'm curious at what stage you guys worked with Roblox. Like, what was it before they were public or after? Or?
Yeah, pre IPO. So one small caveat there is, so I just came up on my anniversary at Teknos, and so I haven't had the personal privilege of working on Roblox yet, but I know they've been a client for a while now, and it was pre IPO, and we continue to do work with them. But yeah, it's been obviously a great client for us and a lot of fun to kind of see how well they've done.
I mean, with Roblox, right? They go public, Rohan, and then the stock goes on a tear, right? And I think they hit, I don't know, a public, like a valuation of somewhere around 65 billion, something like that, market cap. And now we're back to sort of 31 billion market cap. This is a significant erosion, call it, in the value of the business.
Right.
How would someone like you explain that? Or like, is it just market forces? Is it, when you go in and you dig, there's fundamental things inside the business that make you reevaluate? And I guess the other question is like back to sort of our initial conversation in terms of levers, in terms of valuation. How much does hype play into this, right? Like, is how big is hype a factor in terms of putting a dollar valuation on a company?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, right? Because I think a lot of the valuations we do are for kind of tax filing purposes, and so
you want them to be low.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That is exactly right. And so we need to kind of temper those expectations. And so we'll go into management calls and here's our golden egg and here's why it's so great. It's like, great, now tell us about kind of the holes in that armor, right? Like,
okay.
Why is this golden egg maybe paint and not solid gold, for example.
Fool's gold.
And so it's a fascinating, yeah. So obviously hype, if you're on kind of the company side of things, you're really excited about your product, but um, let's dig in a little deeper here and make sure that hype is justified. But yeah, going back to kind of that Roblox erosion, as you put it, yeah, I think hype has a lot to do with it. I think last year with kind of those meme stocks, it was very similar, right? Fundamentally, I don't think people would buy GameStop at the prices it was hitting, but there was just so much chatter and social media interaction and just hype around it that it went nuts. And so, I think it's a similar kind of situation there where a lot of hype around it, and then, people kind of took a closer look, and now it's more realistic expectations.
Are you seeing a trend in terms of valuations in the space, Rohan? Like if you look at gaming and esports and how valuations have evolved even over the last year, but maybe 2 years or 3 years, right? Are you seeing a broader trend? Is it valuations are all going up, but like you're seeing a rising tide? Are you seeing something more cyclical? Like I'm curious, what is the bigger trend that you might be seeing from a valuation standpoint?
Sure. Yeah, I think the trend to me seems to be kind of a kind of rising tide. You've seen kind of general increases across the board, and I think it's excitement around gaming and where it's going. I don't know if we've talked about this yet, but kind of metaverse and virtual reality, and Meta, aka Facebook. And the things they're doing, I think has a lot of potential for gaming. I don't know how applicable to esports it will be, but kind of the general gaming world, I think there's a lot of excitement there, and it seems to be driving, especially on the fundraising side, a lot of excitement in the space.
Can you elaborate specifically by types of companies where you're seeing either growth there or larger valuations than you'd expect, or increasing client bases from blockchain-based gaming companies that are exploring crypto applications and NFTs, things that are, I think, more like you just had mentioned, more Web3 and metaverse as a whole, and less esports specific, or rather ones that just have that, I suppose, adjacent vertical or potential?
Yeah, so I think that's one of Teknos' specialties is kind of crypto valuations, and so a lot of the clients we're seeing now seem to have kind of a gaming overlap to it. Whether it's tokenization of the games, or you need a kind of specific wallet or cryptocurrency to use, and then blockchain based gaming as well it seems to have really kind of ramped up over I'd say maybe the last 6-9 months from what I've seen. So yeah, I think that space specifically seems to have really kind of ramped up.
Rohan, as someone who gets to look under the hood, right, of a lot of companies, and obviously a lot of companies in the gaming and esports space, and now metaverse and Web3, like, are there any trends that you see that get you excited, like specific subsectors of the market where, because of everything you've seen, you're extremely bullish about? Or
yeah, I think one specific kind of example that comes to mind is a company that's they're building a virtual reality platform. It's basically a marketplace where they partner with various games and brands and things like that. And so I'm not sure if you guys seen kind of that Ready Player One, the book, and more recently movie. There's they're creating something very similar where you have your avatar, you go in, you can buy from their marketplace. this company specifically is focused on kind of the avatar side of things, and so they have agreements with the games and the various sponsors. So they have a revenue share agreement. If you upgrade, let's say it's Nike, for example, right? So I put on some Nike shoes onto my avatar. This company gets a revenue split from Nike. They're not there yet, right? They haven't signed Nike, but they have other examples like that. I want to buy a hat, and so there's a virtual hat put on my avatar and revenue split there. And that to me, I think is really exciting. And then the other part that's really cool to me is it's a universal avatar, right? So I can go from game to game based on their partnerships, and I'm in the game now. And that to me, I think is really exciting as well.
Definitely a ton of potential, I think, in terms of the application of things like that and what we're waiting to be further built out. Exciting that you get to see them, I think, on the earlier side of things, as they're growing and looking for that verification from you guys at Teknos. Two things I neglected to ask earlier that I think are worth stating here. I didn't want to forget any longer. One was, we do have a ton of listeners that are with startups or varying stages of their companies. Conversely, we have a lot of listeners that are also investors in early stage startups in various stages of companies. Sure. For the first side of that equation, are there any actions or things that those companies could do from a forced appreciation standpoint where maybe they're not looking at, for lack of a better word, dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's? Is there anything that they might not think to do that would help raise their own valuation? And on the other side of the equation, for an investor, are there any red flags or common mistakes that they might not look or think to look under the hood for certain companies that they're thinking of investing in, that you would offer advice for both people on each side of the table?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think I mentioned this before, but a lot of the valuations we do are for kind of equity compensation purposes. And so we're setting kind of the option prices for new employees. And so from the company standpoint, it's just, let's not have those prices get too high. And from the investor standpoint, I just the capital structure, right? That's one of the biggest drivers of our valuation is how does this kind of waterfall kind of work, and how does in a liquidation scenario, how does that money kind of flow through the cap structure? So making sure that that's reasonable for both sides and makes sense. We've seen some very early stage companies where the language is a little ambiguous, and then you can get into all sorts of trouble with the analysis because you interpret it one way and it's the value conclusion is 50% higher because of how this is worded. So I think, like you say, kind of dotting those I's and crossing those T's is the biggest factor for us, it seems, is just making sure that kind of agreement language is appropriate and set up well.
Rohan, how do you guys at Teknos think about like sector specific? Because valuing a business is somewhat mechanical, right? There's like financial techniques and knowledge that is applied. But what do you think is unique about the esports and gaming sector? Like what separates you guys, especially? Like, is it just knowledge of the space? Like, what is the specific expertise in the space that makes it so that you guys have, the kind of the marquee clients that you do there? I'm just curious, what is that sector specific, little sprinkle that makes you good at doing valuation in esports and gaming?
Yeah, I think a big part of it is just kind of the expertise across our roster. Myself with the kind of traditional sports background, and then we have other associates and VPs that have very deep experience in gaming and esports. And then it's a little bit of chicken and egg, but the client roster that we have, I think, kind of proves out that, we obviously do good work. And there's a reason those clients came to us, and we were able to kind of retain them and hopefully get some more clients of that caliber on our website fairly soon.
And you mentioned, your experience with sports teams, and I forgot to ask you, like, how similar is the exercise of valuing a sports team versus an esports team?
In some ways, very similar in that, you're looking at the specific team and how are they performing in comparison to their peers, but then it's very different because all the American leagues, it's a closed system, and if you're comparing the Giants to the Dolphins at some level, it's the exact same thing, right? And there's only a couple differentiating factors for them, and so it's fairly easy to kind of set up a valuation for like an NFL team, for example. Whereas in esports team, there's such variety in the kind of titles they're participating in, kind of what they're focusing, might be more content creation focused rather than kind of a competitive focus. And, even location wise, right? You can be based in Europe, Asia, it might be based in the US. And so that obviously is a factor as well. So I guess there's some overlap, and then there's also just some where it's just a very different analysis.
It doesn't translate 100%.
Not at all. Not at all. Correct.
Yeah, I think, that's an interesting takeaway, because I think a lot of people new to the industry just assume, right, that sports and esports should have just about everything in common, and we should be applying everything that we apply to one to the other. It's interesting that even with valuation, there's a lot of subtlety and a lot of small differences that can have a big impact, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Jimmy, I don't know if you had anything, but I was gonna jump to everyone's favorite segment here.
Let's do it.
So for our new listeners, regular listeners, you guys know this, but for our new listeners, our latest segment is with every guest now. We've been doing something called Judge Jimmy's Cross-Examination. It's 5 rapid fire questions to give you a bit of insight into Rohan, in this case, our guest's life, both in and outside of gaming. But Judge Jimmy, take it away.
Great. So first question, what is your favorite video game IP that has been converted to a book, show, or movie?
So I guess there's already been kind of some older iterations, but it's also a new iteration coming up, Halo. I think very excited for that. I mentioned that growing up playing with my neighbors, Halo was one of the first games we kind of got into together, and it just very fond memories of that game. And so I'm very excited to see how this TV show kind of plays out, and what that looks like. Obviously, there's been, I guess, previous attempts at it, and online shows and things like that, but nothing with close to the budget of what this upcoming series seems to have. And so I think for me, that's the one I'm most excited about.
Yeah, a lot of hate on the Cortana reveal, if you guys saw any of that, but we'll see how they do. I'm looking forward to it also.
The Halo thing's going to be totally binary. People are either going to love it or trash it. There's going to be no in between.
In that light, and you just mentioned growing up playing a lot of Halo, what are your favorite video games growing up? And obviously Halo is one of them. What, maybe two more of your top games from your childhood, or even what you're playing today? Just top 3 games. Let's go.
Yeah. So Halo's definitely on that list. Super Smash Brothers was also always a classic for us. Just love that game so much. And then, like I said, big sports guy. Soccer's been my favorite sport my whole life, and so have to shout out FIFA there as well.
Nice.
Though, if I remember correctly, there's some changes coming there, right? I think EA lost the
may not
the
be
name
renewing the name,
right? Yeah. That'll be really interesting, because I think when you say FIFA, like I'd argue, at least in my peer group, 80% of people, the first thing they think of is the video. right?
Right.
Yeah.
So interesting to see how that name change comes about.
I'm going to stretch this out to the next question. What for a two-parter? What's the character you go to for Super Smash, and what's the team you go to on FIFA?
Okay. So probably Link for Super Smash. Just the original Super Smash Brothers. Big fan of that sword and the spin move, right? And for FIFA, so Messi is just far and away my all-time favorite player. So previously Barcelona, I guess now PSG.
Does that mean you also go for Argentina on the international?
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Though, I guess U.S. soccer is kind of up and coming. So if I'm feeling adventurous, I'll use them as well.
Awesome. All right, last one here. When you play these games, what's your go-to gamer snack or drink?
Oh, that's a good question. Trying to start off 2022 a little bit healthier. So let's say an iced coffee and maybe like some beef jerky as the snack and drink. If you'd asked me 2 years ago, it's probably like Flaming Hot Cheetos and whatever random energy drink I can get my hands on.
That's the answer we wanted. Awesome. Solid. Well, the prosecution rests. So thanks, Rohan, and Paul, back to you.
Jimmy, I was going to say, keep asking that last question, and we're never going to get a drink or food sponsor, right? Because it'll always be something that like is different from. No, Rohan, I love that. Now, look, before I let you go, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you this question, because this is so relevant given our last probably 5 or 6 episodes of the podcast. What do you make of the valuations paid for Bungie and Activision-Blizzard? And let me just put this in a little bit of context. Our good friend William, the esports professor himself, coined sort of this idea of valuing everything in terms of how many Star Wars it's worth, right? Because Disney paid $4 billion for Star Wars, so it was like, is Bungie really worth 1 Star Wars? Is Activision Blizzard really worth like 17 Star Wars? I'm curious how you think of those prices paid in those valuations.
It's definitely an interesting time with those transactions. The Star Wars analogy is really interesting, and 17 Star Wars just initially seems really, really high, right? Like 17x of anything is a very high multiple. I really like that, actually. I think, we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, Activision Blizzard has some huge properties that Microsoft thinks will kind of really help them out. But
do you think either overpaid? Did Microsoft overpay for Activision Blizzard, and did Sony overpay for Bungie?
I think just based off what I know about Bungie and the games that they've developed and are developing now, that one to me I think felt like an overpay. The Microsoft Activision one, like, I feel like there's a lot of potential. So gut reaction was, maybe that's a high price, but it could work out for them. I guess what I'm trying to say is, like the Bungie Sony transaction seems less likely to be beneficial for Sony than the Activision Microsoft one will be for Microsoft.
Yeah, I want to stretch this out a little further, Paul, because we talked so much recently also about Microsoft potentially buying Discord, right? At such a low valuation. Rohan, what's Discord?
Like
such a low,
10 billion,
just $10 billion. Rohan, what is Discord gonna go public at, or who's gonna acquire them, and for how much? You don't have to name the company, but what's their true value of Discord too? I just want to add that into this conversation.
Yeah, that's a great question, and a hard one, right? Because I think we've seen transactions of other kind of chat platforms, your Slack, your Skype, your things like that. And obviously Discord is a little bit different with its demographics and kind of use cases. I can't. I don't know that I could tell you who, but I think kind of that 10 to 12 billion. It doesn't feel unreasonable to me. I think that that's a solid number to me.
The magic number for most of these gaming companies, I've said this before, seems to be 30 billion. They all go public around 30 billion. There's something like, and it's maybe you guys, right, Rohan? It's you guys who all decide they're all worth about 30 million. But no, it's super interesting and super insightful. Look, valuation is such, like, we come back to it over and over again in so many of our conversations, so much of the news, so much of the analysis of the stories, whether it's acquisitions or fundraisers or whatever. So really appreciate all that insight. I know our audience is going to love this. If you want to be followed or like Teknos, or like, where can people find out more or find you or follow you?
So LinkedIn is probably the easiest way to contact me. It's just my name in the LinkedIn. I guess LinkedIn.com/Rohan Bose, I think, is kind of the link. Twitter, my handle is Rohan Bose 3, and same for Instagram. Not super active on either of those platforms, but don't mind a few new followers, and if that's how people prefer to reach out, happy to chat that way as well.
I love it. Just a reminder, guys, for our audience, for our listeners, Wednesday evening, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure, don't miss the live show. It's a lot of fun. We do all the news from the last week. It's a bigger cast. We do it live with you guys. You get to come, ask questions, get in our faces, challenge us. Really would love more of you to come to the live show. We know so many of you, thousands of you, listen to it and watch it after the fact, but the more the merrier live. That's Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. Jimmy, thank you as always. Rohan, thank you as always. Make sure to follow Business of Esports everywhere, where Business of Esports or Biz Esports, on every single platform. That's Instagram, that's LinkedIn, that's Twitter, that's TikTok. Go follow our TikTok. There's so much good content on our TikTok. And as always, guys, we will see you next week.